Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into a fascinating, honestly kind of urgent medical mystery that's affecting millions of working-age Indians right now. It's a paradox that completely flips the script on what we think we know about our daily habits. Millions of us believe that our traditional home-cooked diet is keeping us perfectly healthy. But the truth? There's a hidden crisis brewing right beneath the surface. So it really begs a critical question. Why are Indians aging faster, gaining fat, and losing muscle, all at the exact same time? To understand why a nation that largely eats at home is facing this epidemic of rapid aging and severe weakness, we have to look at a truly shocking piece of data. Let's look at the numbers. A 2020 study spanning 8 major Indian cities, including Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore, revealed that a staggering 71% of working adults aged 30 to 55 already have extremely poor muscle health. Just let that sink in for a second. 71%. We aren't talking about the elderly here. We're talking about people in their prime working years, people raising families and building careers. Now, we usually think severe muscle loss only happens way down the line, maybe in our 70s, right? But this condition, medically known as sarcopenia, is silently triggering decades earlier. Instead of starting at retirement, it is quietly deteriorating the bodies of individuals right around age 35 to 40. And the scary part is, it goes completely unnoticed until the damage is already done. This completely redefines what muscle actually does for us. Here's the absolute crucial point. Muscle isn't just for looking good at the gym, and it's definitely not just for bodybuilders. It's actually your body's largest metabolic organ. Think of it like a massive storage tank that literally absorbs about 80% of the sugar from your blood right after you eat. So let's break down the mechanics of how this works. When your muscle tank shrinks, the sugar you consume suddenly has nowhere to go. It just overflows right into your bloodstream, which forces your pancreas into absolute overdrive, trying to pump out more insulin. Eventually, all this constant strain leads straight to insulin resistance, which, as we know, is the very first step toward type 2 diabetes. This is exactly why even seemingly thin people are developing diabetes at alarming rates. The famous YY paradox from a renowned 2004 Lancet study proves exactly how this happens. Researchers compared a British Caucasian doctor and an Indian doctor. Both had an identical, perfectly normal body mass index of 22.3. On paper, they were practically twins. But inside, the Indian body type held more than double the body fat. We're talking 21.2%, compared to just 9.1%. This brings us to a frankly terrifying biological reality known as the thin fat phenotype. Because of this specific body composition, Indians are essentially being lied to by their normal BMI numbers. You might look perfectly thin on the outside, sure, but inside you're hiding dangerous visceral fat around your vital organs, all while your highly protective muscle just silently disappears. So why is our muscle vanishing in the first place? Well, it all comes down to what's on our plates. Average Indian protein consumption lags dangerously behind the global average. While the rest of the world consumes about 68 grams a day, India sits at just 47 grams. That is well below the required 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight that medical councils recommend. But wait, you're probably thinking, what about our daily dal? We constantly fall for this massive myth that our standard bowl of dal provides all the protein we need. The reality? A cooked bowl of dal is mostly water. When you break down the actual nutrition, it only contains about 3 to 4 measly grams of protein. You would literally have to drink a swimming pool of dal every single day to hit your actual requirement. The major takeaway here is that almost everyone is missing the mark. Whether you're strictly vegetarian or someone who occasionally eats meat, the vast majority of Indian diets are heavily protein deficient. Over 80% of vegetarian and 65% of non-vegetarian diets just lack adequate protein. Where still, half of the protein we actually do get comes from low-quality cereals like wheat and rice, which totally lack the complete amino acid profile your body desperately needs to build muscle. But, we shouldn't blame the home kitchen entirely for this. This is actually a deep structural issue. Historically, the 1960s Green Revolution was an absolutely necessary policy, designed to save a starving nation by prioritizing cheap, abundant carbohydrate calories, things like wheat and rice, over protein-rich pulses. It solved the calorie crisis back then, but it left us with a massive nutritional blind spot today. And this carbohydrate-heavy legacy is compounded by some serious widespread misinformation. Astonishingly, 85% of people mistakenly believe that eating protein will actually make them fat, Or they just assume it's some specialized supplement meant only for hardcore bodybuilders. This toxic combination of carb-heavy diets and an irrational fear of protein has created a dual health disaster across the country. Which leads us directly to this really alarming data. While we're rapidly losing muscle, we're simultaneously getting heavier. According to recent national surveys, nearly a quarter of both men and women in India are now officially categorized as overweight or obese. And those numbers, they are climbing incredibly fast compared to just a few years ago. When we compare the demographics, it becomes pretty clear that our modern lifestyle is the main catalyst here. Moving to the city practically doubles your risk of obesity. Why? It's the sedentary desk jobs, the massive influx of highly processed packaged foods, and just a severe lack of everyday walking and movement. All of this brings us to what medical professionals consider the absolute worst possible combination: sarcopenic obesity. This is where you suffer the severe metabolic damages and weight gain of high fat, sitting right alongside the crippling physical weakness and sugar mishandling of low muscle. So you're getting heavier, but your structural foundation is actually getting weaker. Let's break down exactly how this traps you, because it is a vicious cycle. Less muscle means your body just burns fewer calories at rest. That leads to more fat storage, which in turn creates chronic, heavy fatigue. Because you're tired all the time, you stop moving as much. And because you stop moving, you lose even more muscle. It's a brutal downward spiral that's incredibly difficult to break out of once it gets going. And this spiral is scaling up so rapidly. With waistlines expanding, especially dangerous abdominal obesity, which now affects 40% of women, what started as a personal health issue has quietly snowballed into a massive national crisis. In fact, India is on track to have the third largest obese population in the entire world. Now, we often boast about being a young, highly productive country, our so-called demographic dividend. But this raises a terrifying question, doesn't it? What happens when those 71% of working adults with weak muscles and high visceral fat enter their 50s and 60s? The math simply does not add up in our favor. If we don't intervene right now, our greatest economic asset, our young workforce, is going to become a massive healthcare liability. A population plagued by chronic fatigue, rampant diabetes, and fragile bones means millions of lost workdays, absolutely skyrocketing out-of-pocket medical costs, and an entire generation facing physical dependency in their later years. So how do we actually fix this? Well, the solution requires a three-tier approach, starting at level 1, the policy level. The analyzed data strongly suggests we need a shift from providing just cheap calories to providing actual nutrition. This means the government has to incentivize the farming of pulses and oilseeds and distribute protein-rich foods like dal, millets, milk, and eggs through public systems to make them affordable for absolutely everyone. Moving up to level 2, we have the clinical approach. Experts highlight that routine medical checkups really need to move beyond just looking at BMI. They suggest measuring waistlines to catch that visceral fat and utilizing national health platforms to actively screen for actual body composition and muscle mass rather than just checking blood pressure and blood sugar. But here is where you can actually take control. Level 3, the personal solutions. You've got to consciously distribute protein into every single meal you eat. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Thicken up your dals, mix them with rice for a better amino acid profile, and please completely abandon that dangerous myth that protein is only for the young, the athletic, or the bodybuilders. Your body fundamentally needs it to survive, especially after 40. Furthermore, we have to fundamentally change how we exercise. Walking is fantastic for your heart health, no doubt about it, but to actually build that crucial sugar tank we talked about earlier, you must introduce resistance and strength training. 2 to 3 times a week, whether that's using weights, simple resistance bands, or even just your own body weight with squats and push-ups, it is absolutely non-negotiable. Ultimately, just remember this: muscle is your old age insurance. If we want to secure a healthy, vibrant future for ourselves and our country, we have to stop just counting calories and start actively building strength. So as we wrap up this explainer today, I want you to ask yourself, are you going to keep trusting that watery bowl of dal, or are you ready to start building your insurance policy?